Here.
Here.
C. Walker,
Here.
President Vegas,
Here.
here.
Are there any changes to the agenda, Superintendent Presser?
There are no changes.
With that, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
If your microphone's on,
No, it's not.
doesn't sound like.
Oh, okay, there it is. Yay. All right, next, unless there are any changes, can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Moving on to communications, board report, starting with Trustee Tejada.
Good evening, everybody. It's good to be back. Let's see. So we had our first Student Advisory Council meeting, and it was really exciting. But we ran out of food because there's so many students now, and we have another great group of students. We had a lot. We had a lot of returning students, and I just want to thank the trustees who recruited new trustees, and to Dr. Marenko, who recruited all 3 Thornton trustees. So excited about that. It's been too long. And I'm really excited to get started with the school year with them.
I would agree. That was actually pretty fun to be in that student advisory meeting last week. And also I was able to make it out to Terra Nova for their back to school night last Wednesday. So it was good to be able to just see the parent community and actually see a few folks that I know who still have kids at the school. So it was great. Good to be there.
I was traveling last week and I missed back to school nights. I have nothing to report.
I have nothing to report.
I don't have anything to report. Superintendent Presta?
Well, I'm just going to sort of echo the Student Advisory Council was great first meeting, and I am really excited to have 5 kids from the 4 larger schools and 3 kids from Thornton. So it's the largest group I think that I've ever worked with since I've been superintendent. So that's exciting, and a lot of new kids and some returning. So I'm just really excited about that. And I did attend both Terra Nova and Westmore's back to school nights, and there was lots of excitement. Looked around classrooms, had lots of tables set up. Oh, and Jefferson's was the week before, and so all 3 were great. Oceana's and Thornton's will be coming soon. Other than that, happy September.
Thank you. Are there any report out from subcommittees? No, great. Moving on to our AFT Local 1481 report. Turning over nothing. Fantastic. Moving on to consent agenda. Unless there's anything that anyone wants to pull, can I get a motion to approve?
Move to approve consent.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, hold on a second. Let me scroll down. All right, moving on to public comment. Are there any cards?
No cards.
Okay, great. Moving on to our discussion items. First item is discussion 8A1, our board policy update, BP 0420.4, charter school authorization. Superintendent Presta.
Thank you. So this board policy is updated per CSBA's recommendation, and let's see. It says the policy is updated to reference that until January 1st, 2025, the governing board is prohibited from approving a petition for the establishment of a new charter school offering non-classroom based instruction, and provide that a district under state receivership is not in a position to absorb the fiscal impact of a proposed charter school. Policy is also updated to reference pending litigation brought by each of CSBA's Educational Legal Alliance and the Napa Valley Unified School District against the State Board of Education regarding their authority to reverse the denial of a charter school petition by making a determination that the board abused its discretion in denying the petition. So I have proposed accepting all of the recommended CSBA changes.
Okay, are there any questions or comments? Oh, okay, moving on. This is just discussion to the next one, board policy update, BP 9012, board member electronic communication.
Okay. So this, I'm not going to read the lengthy paragraph. There's a new law, AB 922, and this is updated to reflect that. The one thing that I would note that kind of stands out to me is that we want to make sure that we're not limiting public's comments on our social media. So if board members are talking about things that regard the school district or the board and the public comments on it, we can't restrict that. So there's nothing that I'm concerned about. Again, I just am proposing that we make the changes that CSBA has recommended.
All right, any comments or questions? Nope, thank you. Okay, moving on to our next item, which is discussion of LCAP Goal 2 Metric 6. This is one of the first of 4 goals that we picked as a board with the superintendent to focus on as our board and superintendent goals for the next 3 years. And then to bring each of those goals forth to have a discussion about them in public and ongoing discussion. So this is one of the first of hopefully many in the next 3 years about this. So I will turn it over to First Superintendent Presta and Deputy Superintendent of Educational Service, Ms. Baca.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Baca in just a moment. This is a board discussion, but we thought that it might be a good start for Ms. Baca to give sort of a comprehensive, not comprehensive, but a quick update on what the goal is about to spark conversation. Ms. Baca.
Good evening, President Salahuddin. Good evening, members of the board. So just for your information, LCAP goal number 2 is about fostering a positive and supportive school environment that prioritizes well-being. So one of the outcomes in that goal is to measure the effectiveness of that. Well, one of the outcomes is to measure the effectiveness to that goal is to choose a question from the California Healthy Kids Survey. So the California Healthy Kids Survey, from what I remember, was administered even before I started at the district level because it was one of the requirements for the TUPE grant, the Tobacco Use Prevention Education Grant.
That's right.
And then when LCFF had started, it was required that we measure school climate using a valid and reliable measures. And so we had decided to continue administering the survey. So we had been administering the survey and we've been keeping data since 2018, and we've administered this to our 9th grade students and our 11th grade students. And to give you more of a background, the baseline for the LCAP was pulled from one of the questions. So the question essentially was, how safe do you feel when you are at school? Okay. And so just as a background information, 564 9th graders responded to the survey. So 564 out of the 925. So 61% of the 9th graders responded to the survey, and 559 out of the 908 11th graders responded to the survey. So that's 61 and 62%. NT stands for non-traditional school, and in our situation, that's Thornton High School. As you can see, 32% of the students responded, and 16 students. This is the breakdown of ethnicity of the ones that responded the survey. So 1% of American Indian or Alaska Native non-Hispanic responded this on the survey. 37% of Asian American, 2% of African American non-Hispanic, 32% of Hispanic. And I want to go back really quickly with the Asian because with this survey, they had lumped in Filipinos with the Asian. And so Filipinos also count in this 37%. And so this is the percentage again for the 9th graders. This is the percentage for the 11th graders, and then the non-traditional. For the LCAP, we wanted to just narrow down the survey. There's 142 questions. It's very, very comprehensive, and we really just wanted to focus on one question. And again, it's how do you, whether you feel safe at school. And then just as another set of information, this is the percentage of students that responded based on their school of attendance. So 62% from Jefferson High School, 78% from Oceana, 87% from Terra Nova, and then 39% from Westmore. And this is the percentage for 11th graders. And I know that there was a question before of like how students define safe or safety. I want to give you a forefront here that basically before they answer the questions, there are different categories. So the question stem before that is next are questions about violence, safety, harassment, and bullying on school property. And so there are three general questions from the Healthy Kids survey. One is like your general school experience. The second one is about your use of alcohol, tobacco, and drugs. And then the third one is about violence and safety. So with this question beforehand, or this statement, they ask, how safe do you feel when you are at school? So there are 5 potential responses: very safe, safe, neither safe nor unsafe, unsafe, and very unsafe. And this is how our students responded. So as you can see for the 9th graders, 63%, so I've combined the very safe and safe, responded that they feel safe at school. And 31% neither safe or unsafe, and 6% unsafe or very unsafe. So that's the 9th graders. And then to break it down by ethnicity, so Asian or Asian American, 66% of the students felt that they are safe or very safe. 20% of Black or African American student feel safe or very safe. 63% among Latin American students, 66% among white students, 60% would mix, and then 40% as something else. And as you can see, we decided to pull the Black or African American students because of just how low it is in comparison to the other ethnic groups. This is a little tricky too, because I've looked at data since 2018, and there was only 1 year where African Americans were called out, because you have to have at least 10 students to count into the survey. So from the 22-23 survey, there were 11 African American students, so we had barely made the threshold. And so with that, it's really difficult to be consistent. So we need to figure out a way to kind of, how do we assess this? If our students are answering this low in comparison to other ethnic groups, how do we make sure that we are serving their needs and that they are feeling safe at school? And that's it.
Thank you. Opening up to see if anyone has any questions.
What's the total number of questions on this survey?
There were 142 questions.
That's a lot of questions. How is it given? Is it given during school period time, or is it just given to voluntary take home and do it, or how do they?
It depends per school site, but we recommend that they give the surveys during the school day. I know for the 11th graders, we've recommended that they give the survey after their Smarter Balance assessments, because they're already in front of a computer and they could answer that. Some of the schools give the survey during like a specific class where all 9th graders are taking it. So it's either health class, or the college and career exploration class.
And I'm assuming you're probably getting better numbers back from participants where it's given in class like that.
Yes.
As part of the class curriculum.
And as far as the participation rate since like 2018, we are really hovering around like an average of 60%. The lowest participation rate was right after COVID in 2021, where only 48% of the ninth graders responded. But the interesting thing is the year after that, where we were on distance learning, 74% of the students responded. And then it went back down to 61% in 22-23. And I just received the 23-24 participation rate and data, and 55% of the students participated as far as the ninth graders.
Okay. So I can go. Is there, so I'm looking at in this one, right, where 2% of 9th and 11th grade are represented for Black or African-American students. But then at the question, it's only 9th graders that have a response for safety. Is there a reason? If Black students registered in grade 11, how come it was blank on that question?
Not understanding.
So if you go down to the question again,
I think you said there was, in the 11th grade, there was nothing there to represent the African American.
but it says 2,
On the 11th grade.
but it's 2 here, so it's 2 in 9th and 2% in 11. So it's the same. So if you go down to the question, keep going.
I think isn't that 2%
there.
of the respondents?
It says Black and African is 20, and then for grade 11 it's blank. So I'm wondering why it's blank.
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So
Question.
okay, so that was one of my first questions from reviewing this, and then go ahead.
Sorry. Maybe it's because, so this is school perceived as safe or very safe. Can you go back to, scroll back up to the top? And thank you there. So,
That's the participation rate.
so sorry, can you go down a little bit more so we can see? That's the participation rate?
That's the participation rate.
So that's the participation rate, where the other one is safe or very safe. Maybe no kids marked it as safe or very safe.
Then shouldn't it be 0? I mean, because the other ones have 0. I don't know. Yeah. If we go here, it just seems to me normally, if you look at all the other answers, it's usually left blank because there's not enough students that answered the question.
Right.
But if there are enough Black or African American students in grade 11 to have registered, then for here, it should have something like 1%, 2%,
Well, I think because there was, one of the options was either safe, they neither felt safe or unsafe. So it was kind of like nothing.
Yeah,
Right,
it
so
could be
if
that
those-
all
if-
of them answered very
Not
unsafe.
Very unsafe. Oh, is that answer somewhere on, if we scroll down, or is it just this?
Like how that percentage answered, you mean? Like
Yeah.
where that's at? Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't get that information. They
Okay.
cluster them to just very safe or safe when
Okay.
it comes to the breakdown of the ethnicity.
Okay. Okay.
And the only explanation is cells are empty if there are less than 10 respondents. So less than 10 respondents must have said safe or unsafe.
In grade 11.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what this data is saying, at least for the 9th graders, basically, you said there were 11 9th graders, right? Which means 2 students said that they felt safe.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe it's 0.
Right.
Maybe it's 0 said in grade 11. Okay.
I'm just confused on why we would give them the option to say nothing about it or just pick something, right? I mean,
Well,
We don't pick the questions. I mean,
no, I know. I'm just
Yeah.
speaking out loud. Like Why give them an option to say
Neither safe.
neither
nor
safe
unsafe.
or that? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they either do or they don't.
So one of the surveys that we administer from the National Equity Project, we actually just had 4 options because of exactly what you're saying, Trustee Gallegos, because we wanted students to sway either one way or another.
And so that was going to be my other question. So in looking at this survey and then the National Equity Project survey, do they align? I don't remember. They do.
So we crafted our own survey, working with the National Equity Project, and we said, do you feel seen, heard, and valued at school? So it wasn't exactly the same question. They are kind of getting at some of, if you feel seen, heard, and valued at school, you likely feel pretty safe. But they aren't the exact same question, but we haven't analyzed to see if they align that closely.
I don't know if it's the same proportion, but I know looking at it as a whole, our students of color tend to answer it lower, that they don't feel as connected at the school. And that's one of the reasons why we as a team decided to do listening sessions. And we started with our Hispanic Latino students, and we were thinking about expanding and speaking with our African American students and Pacific Islanders as well.
Sorry, I'm taking notes. So that's one step. Are there any other steps or plans in place or that you're thinking about doing to change the outcome?
So one of the things I think what we really need to do is like what we did with the National Equity Project is to really listen to the students as to what is causing them to feel safe or not safe at school. And perhaps administering the survey every year instead of like every other year. So the students, basically the 9th graders, will not take the survey until they're in the 11th grade. So it's kind of hard to assess, and we don't know if we're going to get the 10 students in order to get the results that we want. So another idea is, I know that we're probably going to go back and ask again if students, feel like they are seen, belong, heard, just to see if there's an improvement, that maybe we add another question, just, as a thought. So there's a 2 question. But just looking at this, it's just very concerning how low our African American students responded.
Can I add to that too? So your question is about also what are we doing to help this, right? Like what are we doing to fix this? And so part of what we're doing with the National Equity Project last year was an equity inquiry year. And then this year we're moving into the equity design year. So next week, the team, Ms. Baca and the 3 others on the team with me, we're going to be going to Chicago next week to work with National Equity Project and begin the design phase. So I hope to have a better answer for you in the coming months, because a lot of what we have done in this district is talk about student experiences, talk about we really want to get student voice, to hear from them how we can improve their experience. And so, these conversations happen really, I was going to say in ethnic studies classes is one place, but they happen throughout the classes in our schools. And so there's a lot of different things. I don't have them, I haven't really thought about listing out the different things that we're doing, but part of what I hope to do this year is have that design really fleshed out to find ways to improve the experience. And it goes from, grading practices, having students feel that they have adults that they can go to on campus. There's many different things, but that's going to be part of that design. from this year.
I'm a little also concerned about the participation rate dropping so low. If it, I think if we really want to take this goal seriously, we got to get a better result back as far as participation rate to get a better, a more accurate idea of what's going on. I mean, kind of basing some of these numbers on a 55% participation rate, I don't think really accurately describes how everybody feels at these schools. It does, it does encapsulate the people that are willing to participate, but there's a lot of voices out there that aren't being heard. So we really got to figure out a way to up that participation rate somehow. I think that's just as important as trying to resolve, how to fix some of these issues.
I agree. And I know when we did the National Equity Project survey, we mandated that they were given in classrooms. So it wasn't left up to, we said, please do it. And then when we saw what classrooms it wasn't given in, we then reached back out and said, hey, we saw that your advisory didn't take it or your flex time, and so could you please get it? And so we really were like on it. So I think that's a really good observation, and maybe we need to look at how we are, how exactly it's being given in each of the schools and making sure that it's consistent. It's consistently given in classrooms and taken.
Yeah, and I also kind of took the liberty of going online. They have a dashboard online that kind of lists a lot of the other survey questions that were on here. Another one that was a little concerning that we're not talking about is some of these kids considering suicide. The percentage rates on those for 9th and 11th grade are pretty crazy. We're looking at like 14% and 12% and 17%. That's a lot of kids saying they're considering suicide. So, I mean, there's a lot more to this survey than we're kind of seeing through some of these numbers, and that's pretty alarming, actually. So I think really getting the kids more involved and letting them talk about this a little bit more and participate in this survey is going to be definitely important, trying to figure out how we can fix some of this stuff.
Also, given that, some of these populations are relatively small, how can we encourage them to participate?
Right.
When you know that only 2% of the respondents are African-American,
Right.
And there's only 11 that responded, we know that we could probably do a lot better.
I agree.
Maybe a specific outreach to them, the Pacific Islander community, we know that they're small numbers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So after you come back from Chicago, do you think, or do you have a timeline on when we could learn what the plan is going to be around improving this number?
So the conference in Chicago, or it's not really a conference, I don't know what we're calling it, retreat, I think they call it. Yeah, it's not necessarily focused on this particular metric.
Yeah.
And what our coaches, so they encourage us to not try and fix everything immediately, because that's what we all want to do. That's in us to go, okay, how do we fix this?
Yeah.
And so last year they really, and Corrine, please, jump in, but I'm not sure what to expect when we go next week. They keep telling, what they're telling us is, okay, so we were in the inquiry phase. It's not that the inquiry's going to stop, right? We're going to keep doing student listening sessions and all of that, but we're going to begin designing. And then it's kind of like design. This is how I'm taking it in. It's kind of like design thinking, where you iterate, and then you have an idea and you try something, and then you see what happens, and then you may make some changes, etc. So your question, like, do I know exactly when we'll have a plan on how to improve this? I'm not exactly sure, is the honest answer, because I'm not sure what we're gonna do. That doesn't mean that we can't ourselves outside of the equity design team, look at ways to, like, how are we going to improve our students feeling safe at school, and finding interim ways of assessing that, because as Ms. Baca said, like, we can certainly administer this every single year. That's still a year in between, right? So do we want to get student listening session data? Do we want to give this exact question only locally, to all of our kids, so we can come up with a plan for that? Do you want to add to?
Yeah, I think before we can really come up with a plan, we really need to understand like where the students are coming from. When they say that they're not feeling safe or unsafe, what does that really mean? And I would like to hear from them on what would make them feel safe at school.
Yeah.
I would hate to design something that doesn't really address what, their definition of safety is. And so I think we need to do more learning and hearing from our students and our parents too, on, what would it take to make them feel safe at school?
And I think that is a plan. I think that is that is action. I think maybe you're hearing like the numbers are going to change immediately. I mean, I think it's more about this is a goal that we gave ourselves. So now that we have this goal, what is the plan? Like, what are we doing? What steps are we taking in order to, in 3 years, meet the goal or meet the metric? And so I agree. I feel like we definitely should have conversations and reach out to the students and talk to them and get a better understanding on why they feel this way. And see, and like I said, looking at other data, is there correlation? Because as Trustee Gallegos pointed out, participation in this particular survey fluctuates. But if there was a higher participation in the other survey that you presented, looking at that and seeing, I think you alluded to that it's also the numbers may be similar, but, is it as similar? And then if there's a way that we can figure out, and I don't know if that's true from this survey, but is it concentrated at a school? Is it district-wide? And I think the other part of it too is, are there ways that we can offer supports for students who are, especially from subgroups of students who are have low representation in our school district? I know we talked before, and there's some schools that have particular groups or clubs that are for certain ethnic minorities. But I don't know, and I don't want to suggest things maybe if that's something students want to do. If it's too small to have at one school, maybe having something via the district where students and parents can be involved in and use that as a platform to get information. But I know getting participation in anything is really hard. But that is just my thinking. That I agree that I don't want us to solve the problem because I have no idea what a Black student feels in one of our high schools, because I've never been one. And so I would prefer to hear the direction from them on exactly what does safety mean? Is it safety, physical safety? Is it psychological safety? Like what are we talking about? And then do they have any ideas on what would help them feel more safe?
Right. And that's really how when we designed the survey last year, where we said, do you feel seen, heard, and valued at school? And if you don't, what would make you feel? Because as you say, like, we're not sure. So I think doing a similar survey about safety is a good starting place.
Yeah. And then I will just say, in talking to my daughters who have had this experience, they both spoke to the psychological safety of being the only one of them in most of their classes. And when things would happen that were directly tied to their Blackness, not knowing what to do. you know, and it would be something that would be benign from a staff member, and they didn't see it as something that was impactful or harmful.
Right.
But for them, was very impactful or harmful. They would come home and tell me what happened and tell me, oh, I didn't know if I should have said something, or I don't know what I had to do. And then they had the additional issue of my mom as a school board member, and everything, you know, is taken to a different level. So not wanting to start something, but there were different things for them that they communicated back to me, you know, especially when they were the only one of them in a class. So, and being an adult that knows what that is, I mean, you do have to kind of like get that armor on to be to walk into certain situations. You're like, you know, okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's part of it, or if it's just like feeling physical threats of violence, or, you know, are on the campus, or if it's something else. So getting more information about that, I think would be great.
Yeah, no, I agree. As you saw, I mean, there's no definition, you know, so I think, there's no definition. And I think certainly a lot of the learning that we've been doing for the last few years and the working with staff is, for me, centered around what are our students experiencing. I too have a child in this school district who happens to be biracial and who is also sensitive to what is said in classrooms that may not impact him, but he knows are impacting other people, and how you go about that. How do you bring it up? Because his mom's the superintendent. So it's a similar thing.
Yeah.
So, but I think that the key through the thread is student voice and student experience, and getting, you know, really hearing from them the impact of our schooling system.
Okay. So that's all I have. And I think too, getting, you know, there's a lot of the planning phase right now. And so thinking more like in 2025, you know, after we come back from break, or if you guys come back from break, having another check-in to see like, where you guys are, and if there's any, like if there's plans for listening sessions, or if you've already had some communications with some students and parents and getting some feedback there.
Yeah.
Anything else from anyone else?
No.
Okay. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
My computer shut off.
You want to look at mine?
It's up there too.
Oh,
all right.
okay.
Yeah, I was like, that's right. It's right in front of me. So moving on, our next item is our Student Services Board Policy Update BP 0410, non-discrimination in district programs and activities. I believe the superintendent Presto.
I think.
Oh, no, it's not. It's actually Ms. Spessimino. Thank you. Hello.
Good evening. This is an updated policy to reflect new federal regulations as well as new laws on textbooks, adoptions, and access to district web and mobile applications.
So I don't know if anyone had any questions or anything they want to discuss here. Nope. Okay, moving on to our action items. First item, 9A1, Resolution 2024/2020-2025/5, 180-day wait period exemption for PERS retirees. Turning it over to Ms. Lujan.
And I'll do it.
That's what we know. It's hard for me to see who's over there sometimes.
This resolution waives the public employee retirement system 180-day waiting period before a retiree can return to work. We are specifically seeking to waive the 180-day waiting period for Phyllis Mendel so that she may provide specialized training on projects such as the annual credential monitoring report from the California Department of Education and California Credential Commission. It is anticipated that she will provide 1 day of training per week. We ask that you approve this resolution.
Okay, unless there's any questions or comments.
So moved.
There you go.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you. Moving on next to the Daly City Youth Health Center stipend side letter agreement, and I will turn it back over to Ms. Besuino.
Hello. This side letter agreement was developed in response to grant funding available to the Daly City Youth Health Center. It provides stipend payments for things such as outreach events and retention. We ask that you approve this side letter agreement.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to any future agenda items. When is the first meeting with the student trustees?
The next meeting,
It is, they're coming to next week.
Yeah.
So are they being sworn in on that meeting?
I have not thought about that. No, I don't know.
Okay.
I have not thought about that.
discuss it.
That's the first one that anybody will come to, though. So that makes good sense.
Cool. All right. And then we could discuss an agenda planning, but we'll do a similar thing with each of the other 3 goals that we have for. We'll put them on a future agenda. Unless there's anything else. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Bam.